Ojoburudele. Shibuankaku. Does God change? Yes, God change. In fact, God is changeable. You want to know how God changed? I will explain. Ojoburudele. Shibuankaku. You think God cannot change? God changed. He changes. He has been changing. According to the Bible story, if we should follow everything that is written in the Bible, you will understand that God actually changed. Are you getting me? God changed 20 times in the Bible. According to King James Bible, God repented 20 good times in the Bible, in King James Bible. Yes, God can change. All right? Let me give you an example. Genesis chapter 6 from verse 5 to 7. God was angry. He was grieved over what he created. And the Bible says, and God changed his mind. He repented from what he created. He began to feel remorse after creation. That is one. Number two, if you go to Exodus chapter 32 from verse 14, when Moses asked God to repent, Moses told God, repent from the evil I want to do to the children of Israel. And verse 14 said, and God repented. And God did what? He repented from the evil he planned to do against the children of Israel. So God can change, in case you do not know. Another example, if I should ask you now, where is God? You will say God is in heaven, right? But I will tell you that God is not in heaven. Remember, we are talking about God being changeable or not. And I'm telling you that God is changeable. He can actually change. Now, if you tell me that God is in heaven, then you are proving it to me that God is changeable. But I'm trying to let you know that God is changeable by telling you that God is not in heaven. How? Now listen. Who created heaven? God, right? God created heaven. Now, and I'm asking you, where was God before he created heaven? Where was he before he created heaven? The Bible made us to know, Genesis chapter 1, that before the world was created, God, the Spirit of God came. He came from somewhere, right? And the Spirit was revolving on top of the water, on the surface of the water. He said there was nothing existing, and God came and was going, the Spirit was revolving on the surface of the water, right? Now, I want you to pick this point. Point one. God came from somewhere. He came from where? Somewhere we do not know. He came from somewhere and was revolving on the surface of the water. Now the question is, where was the place he came from? Where was he coming from to be revolving on the water? That is question one. God thought in his mind that, things needed to start existing. So he now started creation. And the first thing he created was what? Heaven and earth. According to Genesis, he created the heaven and the earth. Genesis said, and God created the heavens and the earth from the beginning, right? I want you to carry this at the back of your mind. God came from somewhere and revolved around the surface of the water. And after revolving on the surface of the water, he now created the heaven. After creating the heaven, you are now telling me that God is now living in heaven, isn't it? So when you say that God is living in heaven and he is the same person that created the heaven, it shows that, it tells that God is changeable. Because he was living somewhere, he later left the place and came to the surface of the water, and while standing on the surface of the water, he now created heaven. So after creating the heaven, he decided that he will no longer go back to where he was coming from. He had to now start living in heaven. That is to say that God was living somewhere, and then after creating heaven, he now packed out of the place he was living and started living in heaven. That is what it means by saying that God lives in heaven, and the same him created the heaven. And if you want to argue with me that God was never somewhere, he created the heaven and he's still living in heaven. Now, there was a time when the heaven was not created. Where was he? And if he was somewhere before the heaven was created, I would like to tell you that that is the same place God still is. Because you said that God is unchangeable. He does not change. It means after creating the heaven, he is still living in the same place where he was living. And if you say he is living in heaven, it means that God is changeable. He can actually pack out from a house, like somebody who is living in an apartment, and relocate from an apartment to another apartment. That is what it means by saying that God is changeable. Are you getting it now? So I'm trying to let you know that God is changeable because there was a place he was living before he created heaven, and then later decided that he's going to be living in heaven right now. If you believe that God is living in heaven, then know that God is changeable because he was somewhere before he created the heaven. I believe, even if you don't believe that God was somewhere, at least you believe, according to the Bible, that he came from somewhere and he was revolving around on the surface of the water. So let's say now God was revolving around on the surface of the water all throughout his life before he finally created the heaven. So definitely that is very, very sure here that before he created the heaven, he was revolving on the surface of the water. At least let's take the surface of the water as a place where he was revolving before creating the heaven, and then later relocated to heaven and started staying in heaven where he's now relaxing. So now have it in your mind that God is what? Changeable. If he's not changeable, he shouldn't have left the surface of the water and then relocate to heaven. And don't forget, he was coming from somewhere. Are you getting me? God is actually changeable. He can actually repent like man, according to Genesis chapter 6 and Exodus chapter 32. And don't forget, I told you that God repented 20 times in the Bible, according to King James Bible. What more can you say about this? God is purely changeable. He can change anytime. So Africa, humanity, it's time we wake up and start questioning so many things that we've been believing for years. We need to put a correction to this.